Okay, now we're going to do three circle Venn diagrams. It's going to follow the same basic method that we did with the two circles, but it is going to be just a touch more complex. So we'll follow the same basic procedure. You write out the premises, diagram them or plot them in the circles, and then try and read the conclusion from what you've plotted. In this case, all worthy people, or all people worthy of respect, are honest. Premise 2, some bankers are not honest. And in the conclusion, some bankers are not worthy of respect. You can probably get a feel for the fact that this is actually valid, but we want to actually diagram it to show. Now when the three circles overlap, there are all kinds of zones that we have to consider in all of this, so you have to make sure you're precise on what you eliminate from consideration. So when we look at all W's are H's, anything that's a W in this whole circle W, anything that's a W must also be an H. So this region has to be eliminated. So click on the paint can again, pick a color, eliminate that section, but also make sure you get this section. This is also in the W circle and not in the H circle, so that has to be eliminated as well. The second premise, some B's are not H's. Again, this is going to be a particular, some B's, we aren't sure which ones. Are not H's. So there are going to be some kind of bankers that are not honest. So I want you to get a text box, go into the banker region that is not in the honest region. Draw a little text box here and just put B for banker. Well, actually, you can just put X for just a generic any kind of quality or any kind of individual within the banker region, I guess is technically correct. So place your X here, outside of the H region, but in the B region. And then those are your two premises that have been diagrammed, and then you try and read the conclusion. Some B's are not W's. So we go to the B that we diagrammed. This individual right here is in the B region, and we have to see is he a B but not a W. So he's here. He's a banker here, is in the B region, and also not in the W region. So this actually ends up being a valid diagram because the conclusion does read from the premises. In what the way to describe it in your textbook, the conclusion follows the premises. And so we will go ahead and type it in. This is valid. And in the other example, it's another three circle Venn diagram. And it kind of follows the same basic formula. All boys are males. All boys are youth. All males are youth. So these are all universal statements. In this case, there were some bankers are not honest, and in the two circle diagrams we talked about an individual person and Socrates as an individual person. In this case, these are all universal statements. If you look down here in this particular case, they all follow they have the universal quantifier in front of them. In this particular case over here, going back to the other the three circle Venn diagram, when you talk about individuals within a class, they have a different kind of quantifier. It's not the universal quantifier, it's actually called an existential quantifier. That's what this backwards E signifies. Again, like I said, this is just out of curiosity's sake if you're interested. But at this level you aren't required to know this notation. Now in the three circle Venn diagram over here, we plot out all B's are M's. So again, select a paint can and a color. Anything that's a B must also be an M. So anything that's a B and not an M is crossed out. So here's the B ring. This area of B is not an M, so it's crossed out. And this area of B is not an M, and so that's crossed out. So all we're left with in the B area, right here, is also in the M area. Right? And now we're going to also cross out all B's are Y's. Now in this case, pick a second color on the second premise. Right? This is going to show that there's a second premise that we're plotting here. All B's are Y's. If it's a B, it must also be a Y. So here's the Y circle, here's the B circle, and so this region of B and Y is open, but this region of B that's not a Y must be crossed out. Right? And so now that we're done with that, I want you to read the conclusion from the premises. See if it fits in Venn diagram. All M's are Y's. Okay, so we can't consider anything that's been crossed out, right? That's out of consideration, but all the other regions are still possible. And so if it's an M thing, it must also be a Y thing. So are there any areas of M that are not Y? Well, this is M and Y, this is M and Y. This is an area of M that is not a Y. So it's possible that we could have an M, or a male, that's not a youth. For example, an adult man, right? So just by kind of looking at the sentences here, the way the argument is constructed, you can sort of tell that it's going to be invalid. But this gives you a way to actually diagram it out and show its invalidity. And so draw a text box just by clicking and dragging. Type in that it's invalid. Oops. Make sure you select text that's legible. It's invalid, and for the reason that the class M may still exist outside of class Y. You can explain it however you'd like, as long as it makes sense. But that is how these exercises are going to go. I want you to follow these basic procedures on all the different Venn diagrams, and I will, like I said, have them all pre-designed for you in a file that you need to download, and when you're done you save it. Click on File, Save As, and again save it with your name. I've already pre-saved it here as Stanfield Assignment 15. Then you go ahead and click Save, and it will save what you've done, and then you will upload that file to me through the website like we've been doing. I will review it, maybe make a few comments, return it to you, and then you will send it back for final grade at the end of spring break.